Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm Terry Garcia Cruz, and I'm the Regional Administrator for Region 3. And welcome to Region 3's Peer Exchange Forum. It's so great to have you all participating in today's event. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to encounter today and what we're actually going to speak to. So let me just set the stage. We actually have been asked to do the regional forum. Some of you may have participated in the national exchange hosted by our Deputy FTA Administrator, Noria Fernandez. And so we have been asked to kind of take this on a regional level. So you'll see all 10 regional offices across the United States doing these regional forums. So it's an opportunity to learn from one another, encourage open dialogue, look at best practices, as well as discussing challenges that you might be experiencing as it relates to the topics that we're going to cover today. So the first topic will be ways that agencies are getting their employees vaccinated, as well as how transit agencies are providing service to vaccination sites so that their community definitely has that access as well. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some strategies that have been used for the mask up requirement. And so that kind of gives you a direction of what the topics will be covered. And we are joined with a great group of panelists. And I just want to stress that we are at a critical moment in this pandemic, and how we collectively respond to that effort will really be a pivotal point in our history. The Biden presidential administration really has a focus on safety. And so with that said, one element is to ensure that there is access to Americans to have that vaccine by May 1. There's also just a focused effort on working with our federal partners, whether it's the CDC, TSA, FEMA, to really make sure that we are collectively educating stakeholders on all different levels, whether it's the access point to vaccines or the mask up requirement. So it's really important that we keep the safety focus in line and in forefront of our responsibilities, as all of you are already doing. And we also want to acknowledge the fact that your frontline people are front and center in this pandemic. And a lot of individuals have experienced some aspects to this pandemic, that are very personal. And so we want to say thank you to them and applaud their efforts in keeping transportation services moving forward. I want to move into the American Rescue Plan, which was signed by President Biden, giving transit agencies approximately $3.5 billion. Now, not each individual transit agency, right? Everybody be doing really a happy dance. But basically, the focus for that is to really help with the operational implications and the challenges and the costs that have been incurred through this pandemic. And that's really going to be a boost to our transit systems. It's also going to help if transit agencies are providing service and need to be reimbursed if they're providing that service to vaccination sites. That also is an aspect of eligibility. We're already seeing a lot of good outcomes from this bill and the funding, because we're seeing transit systems actually rolling back drastic service cuts that they would have to experience, and all the layoffs and employees that would have to not be employed. So it's great to see the positive aspects of the funding, and we are definitely moving forward in a positive fashion. And we look forward to working with you in expending those dollars. And so now let's talk a little bit about the logistics for today and some event reminders. if you have a question, I would encourage you to type it in the chat box. And also, well, if time permits, I'd like to open up to some Q&A at the end and have some open dialogue. And so we'll go ahead, and if you have a question that you want addressed, like I said, type it in. We'll take the questions after we have entertained one of the questions that came in advance. A lot of the questions were for FTA, so we went ahead and we knocked those out and answered those. And so I also would like to remind you that you will be getting a link to this recording. And so if you've registered, we'll go ahead and we'll send that link to you. And additionally, if you have not registered, we ask that you go to the chat box. There'll be a link there to register if someone maybe forwarded the invitation to you. If you would go ahead and do a registration in the link, that will give us an opportunity to send that back to you. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So let's get started with Andrea D'Amico DeSpaldo, who is joining us from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Andrea currently serves as a Deputy Response Coordinating Officer for vaccine operations. She oversees a team of logistic planners and operators, ensuring readiness for strategic disaster response across the Mid-Atlantic. She has served in various offices and roles across DHS, as well as helped to support response efforts during COVID-19. We are honored to have her with us today. Andrea, we are ready to hear from you.
All right, thank you, Terry, for the great introduction. All right, so moving on. So with the few minutes that I have with you guys this morning, I just wanted to do a quick overview of what FEMA's been up to as far as the vaccine mission, and then specifically FEMA Region 3 here in the Mid-Atlantic. So as you probably have realized, COVID-19 is the first incident in our history as an agency that every single state and territory has received a major disaster declaration from the president. So this is unprecedented times. We are servicing across our 10 regions every single state, district, and tribal nation eligible to receive support for this, both the vaccine mission and general COVID-19 support. So the National Strategy for COVID-19 Response and Pandemic Preparedness charges FEMA with the setup and operation of vaccination programs. That includes fixed sites, so the places like the Pennsylvania Convention Center or the Greenbelt Metro Station Community Vaccination Center that we've set up with our partners. It includes those. It also includes mobile vaccination units. So these are roving vehicles that go from place to place and provide access to vaccines for those folks that are most socially vulnerable in both rural and urban areas. So we're doing some of those along the eastern shore of Maryland right now. And we also are supporting over 100 different community vaccination centers, mobile missions, and other vaccination efforts through our public assistance program. And that's mostly through funding and materials that we're providing to our state and local partners. So right here in Region 3, we are currently supporting 3 federal max vaccination sites, and those are in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. And we have worked with many of the folks on this panel and on this call, I'm sure, from our transit partners in ensuring that access is available, especially to those most socially vulnerable, to get to the sites and get vaccinated. So we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to just quickly highlight with the time that I had a few of the partnerships that we've been involved in here at FEMA within Region 3 and actually give great thanks to those folks who've been supporting us. So we've worked closely with our Federal Emergency Support Function number 1, which is transportation, to engage transit stakeholders during this vaccine mission and remove those barriers to accessing the vaccine by socially vulnerable folks. So we've worked really closely and had great partnerships with SEPTA, WMATA, RTA of Central Maryland, PG County Call-a-Bus, and Hampton Roads Transit. So we thank those folks for stepping up, both in messaging and actual resources and working with us to make these community vaccination centers the most accessible that they could be. So specifically want to highlight our WMATA partners, who I believe are going to speak a little later. But we were charged by the White House to find a socially vulnerable area in the state of Maryland. And we looked through a lot of different locations, but we kind of centered around Prince George's County. And when we were looking for a spot to put this, and we only had about 2 or 3 weeks to do that, we kind of pulled our hair out and went to all of our normal traditional partners to find a suitable location that could support 3,000 individuals getting vaccinated per day. And eventually, working with our U.S. Department of Transportation partners, came to our attention that the Greenbelt Metro Station, which was located in a socially vulnerable area, obviously great access to transportation, and an enormous parking lot to help us logistically set up the site we needed to set up. Within, I'd say, 24 hours, we had met with the real estate and parking, intergovernmental affairs, and all sorts of folks within WMATA and the surrounding area to put our heads together and plan out a vaccination center that was planned, built, and opened within a week. So, that is just a testament to the great partnership with that particular transit partner. But to all transit partners, we work in disasters and out of disasters to plan and get ready for whatever comes at us, including pandemics. Even though we may have not dreamt this up in our FEMA planning, if you will, we are executing, and we are only doing that through partnerships with folks like you on the phone. So I want to thank you that are supporting us. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see a tweet from the Region 3 accountant. I thought it was appropriate. So this is some of our WMATA partners checking in with our site manager, April, there at the Greenbelt Metro. You'll notice temporary tentage around her. So those are semi-permanent buildings that we built in the Greenbelt Metro Station parking lot and actually created a beautiful, enormous vaccination center right there in the parking lot with their help. So thanks for that. We can go to the next slide. All right, so just quickly, the FEMA Public Assistance Program. So I told you that not only are we supporting these large vaccination centers and mobile vaccination units, we are also supporting all of the state and local efforts that are going on for vaccinating the citizens of the Mid-Atlantic through our public assistance program. So that's primarily through funding. So right along the left-hand side there, you'll see the total assistance that we've given just in the 6 states, or the 5 states in the District of Columbia. And that is somewhere upwards of $6 billion just in these 6 states to support vaccine missions. So we've already obligated. That means we've already spent close to 400 million of that $6 billion. And then public assistance in particular, we are up over near 2 billion. So what does that mean? I know some of you folks in the transit world may have heard about this program, and you've probably been maybe ancillary or indirect recipient of some of these funds. But FEMA Region 3 has funded transportation public assistance projects to support this vaccine mission. And it depends on really the state in which we are in and how those funds get dispersed. But some examples include, transit for mobile vaccinations. I think Delaware Paratransit used them for home delivery. So there are ways in which these public assistance funds are being filtered down into the community and probably impacting transit and your state and local partners and how you guys meet the mission for vaccinating the citizens. So indirectly, you guys are part and parcel to the public assistance program for FEMA. So transit agencies are reimbursed for eligible projects around vaccination through their state and local government. So you're not direct applicants because this is public money. It has to go to the state and locals. But through working with your state and locals, you may have been reimbursed for some of the work you've done around this. And so if you have questions about that or how you can help more, we really direct you to your state and local emergency management agencies and public health departments to find out how you can come and help in the fight. So that is it from me. I think we're doing questions at the end, so I want to thank you all for your time.
Exactly. You got it, Andrea. Thank you so much. We will entertain questions at the end. Thank you for your presentation. Much appreciated. All right, so let's move on to our next speaker, who happens to be Mary B. Leftridge-Byrd, the Regional Security Director for Region 2 for the Transportation Security Administration. Ms. Leftridge-Byrd's responsibilities and operational focus leads to the strategic objectives of the National Strategy for Transportation Security related to all modes of surface transportation for 13 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. Collaboration with partners has been a hallmark of her career, and particularly on local, state, and federal jurisdictional levels. Prior to her current position, Director Lethbridge Bird has served as a federal security director, assigned to Harris Jackson Atlanta International Airport, the world's busiest airport. So, please tell us a little bit about your role as it relates to TSA.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Sure.
The Transportation Security Administration is well known for its nexus to aviation. An organizational change, though, of approximately 14 months ago elevated Surface as a standalone division, which has as its mission to improve and safeguard surface transportation by utilizing a risk-based approach to prevent terroristic attacks, support recovery from catastrophic events, and improve the resiliency of the surface transportation system sector. So this is accomplished through planning, preparation, and collaboration with industry stakeholders. The Surface Division works through 5 regions. Region 2, headquartered here in Atlanta, as mentioned, has as its AOR the Mid-Atlantic through the Southeast states, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and west to West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi. And programmatically, we engage transit systems, pipelines, freight and passenger rail, highway mode, over-the-road buses, and importantly, school bus systems. We do offer quarterly roundtables, which typically include several hundred partners. It is during these exchanges that current COVID protocols are presented by TSA's medical director, whose shared details are able to be replicated if a partner sees that as beneficial. As to enhancing initiatives already in place across transit workforces, particularly where there are employees regularly outwardly facing the public and community, or even on a daily basis as part of their work and positions. To benefit all employees over the past year, a series of human capital advisory memoranda provide the most recent CDC information and TSA guidance on agency policies and flexibilities. This is granted to aid in ensuring the health and safety of all TSA employees, stakeholder personnel, riders, and the traveling public. Some of the flexibilities and support provided employees include emergency paid sick leave, weather and safety leave as a result of reduced operational needs, allowing reduced staffing requirements, maximizing telework, of course, and providing guidance on in-home quarantine practices and guidelines as promulgated by the CDC. Personal protective equipment is issued for all frontline staff specific to the aviation operation, AOR in particular. In addition to the requirement there, officers are required to wear masks and gloves and face shields. When traveling through airports, you will see protections such as plexiglass at travel document checker, which is a person who verifies your identification. And certainly along the passenger queue, all of these mandates provide protection for staff, travelers, and partner personnel. There is a TSA mask requirement with which you're very familiar, I'm certain. But in operational locations and all federal facilities, except in an individual office with the door closed, a person must wear a mask in those facilities. Moving forward, in partnership with the Veterans Health Administration and through local health departments, frontline employees are prioritized to receive vaccine through Operation Vaccinate Our Workforce. Let's move to the next slide, please. So the Security Directive 1582-84-2101 face mask requirements was issued by TSA on February 1st based on presidential executive order. The directive applies to all modes of passenger transportation. I certainly do want to acknowledge with appreciation the mutuality and hard work as we focus in partnership in the implementation of this mandate. Region 2 has made every effort to lean forward in a 3-point approach an operational strategy, a corporate strategy, and as a collaborative strategy. The approach has been predicated on meeting people where they are, working side by side with partners by virtue of engaging operators, engaging employees of the transit system. We have assumed a posture of supporting compliance, which ultimately affords actually having a hand in the reduction of the transmission of the COVID virus. The next slide, please. With the Surface Division's primary focus on partner collaboration, I do want to end with just taking a moment to highlight a few of the initiatives we offer and encourage partners to take advantage of how the Surface Operation Division seeks to support partners through strategic engagement priorities. I'll mention just two, but there are many priorities that we're able to assist our partners with. One of those is the First Observer Plus initiative, which is a security awareness training program designed to increase security awareness on the front line. For those transportation professionals, we provide training to recognize suspicious activity that may be related to terrorism. Another program I'd like to point out is TSA's Exercise Information System. We know it as EXIS. It is a program at no cost. It is a voluntary program designed to prepare a surface transportation stakeholder to effectively respond to security incidents through conduct of a customized exercise focusing on prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. Just two of a menu of initiatives provided to our partners. There certainly are many more. I do want to mention further that we do offer quarterly roundtables, which typically include several hundred partners. Do feel free to reach out to talk offline if you'd like to. Let me know if you'd like to join the next quarterly roundtable, which will be on or about June 22nd. We're happy to continue this important dialogue. And I want to thank the Federal Transit Administration for the opportunity to be part of this important exchange this morning. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for that invitation to your roundtable. It sounds very fascinating. So thanks so much for your presentation. So now we are going to be joined by Paul Wiedefeld. He is from the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, WMATA, also known as Metro. Mr. Wiedefeld has been the CEO since 2015 with over 35 years of leadership experience. Formerly the CEO for the BWI Airport and the Maryland Transit Administration. While at WMATA, Paul has focused on several initiatives, one of them being improving safety and service reliability, with initiatives such as Back to Good and Safe Track. Paul, we welcome you this morning.
Good morning, Terry, and thank you for having me. And I really want to thank you and your staff for all the assistance you've given us during the last year. It's been fantastic, so thank you. My presentation today, I just want to hit on three things. I want to talk a little bit about internal communications, external communications, and some of our external partnerships. So in terms of internal communications, really going back to the early days of the pandemic, our organization came across, we got together across the entire organization to activate our pandemic task force and implement our pandemic plan. We were very fortunate we had a plan in place, and we literally turned it on instantly, in effect. We started procuring PPE and cleaning supplies very, very early in the January, February timeframe of last year. We basically have our medical director engage with public health partners in the CDC at a very early stage. And we started to create policies to guide employees' work practices, new level of disinfecting protocols, and leave policy changes. So we did that at the very beginning to start to prepare for what unfortunately we saw coming towards us. Next, please. To communicate complex information that was rapidly evolving to our workforce, we did a number of things. We created a special COVID-19 update e-newsletter. We developed a Facebook and YouTube live programming where I would partner with labor leaders and other leaders of the organization to communicate information that we had. We would have our medical director and our chief safety officer to answer employee questions about the vaccine particularly about the vaccine, as that started to roll out. We created a special portal to record COVID cases, to be transparent, to transparently report online what was happening in the system and with our employees. And now we're doing the same for the vaccine portion of the pandemic. We partnered with local public health authorities to register employees for vaccines using our WellMoney email, where they can directly communicate with our employees to get the vaccine. Next, please. We had to both encourage our employees to comply with the mask requirements and advise customers of all we were doing around the COVID safety. It was doing what we call doing our part, including disinfections and air filtration that we're doing. And our research has shown that it has been very effective in maintaining a trust in the system for our public users. Next, please. Doing our part has also included partnerships with union officials who promoted information on their websites to their members, with CDC as we passed on their guidance to employees and the riders, and to the community organizations such as the Black Coalition Against COVID, who worked with us to communicate to get youth to wear masks. And that's that one photo you see in the bottom left-hand corner. Again, it was the youth speaking to youth and not necessarily us speaking to you. So that's worked out very well for us. Next, please. When President Biden signed the executive order requiring masks on transit, we were able to quickly post communications throughout our system on our digital screens. We also worked with the regional administrator and the USDOT to host Secretary at his first public event, which highlighted the mask requirements. And so again, Terry, thank you and your staff for helping us pull that together. Next, please. And currently, as was mentioned, our Greenbelt Metro Station is hosting FEMA Max vaccination site, where tens of thousands have now been vaccinated. So thank you, Andrea, for all of your help in helping set that up. And it is, I was over there recently. I mean, it's just an unbelievable site, how quickly that was put up, literally over a weekend. One lesson learned through this partnership, not only has it been a great way to get folks to take transit to access vaccines, but it also been an opportunity to have our employees vaccinated, as the sites typically have some unused supply each day. And we were able to prevent any wasted doses by having our employees on standby. So again, we work very closely with FEMA on that, and that's worked out very well. So thank you again for that. The local, state, and federal partnerships have been critical through the pandemic to protecting our workforce and our customers. So with that, again, I wanted to thank you, Terry, for pulling this together and all the help that you've given us over the last year. And back to you, Terry.
Thank you, Paul. A lot of good strategies in that discussion there, and thank you back to you for your team. Appreciate working with you as well. And so let's move on to Richard Farr, and he's the Executive Director for Capital Area Transit Agency. And he has 22 years experience and has been the Executive Director since 2018. He was recently appointed to the National Transit Institute's Advisory Board and is responsible for the nonprofit creation of Rabbit Cares that receives grants and donations to focus on veterans' transportation so that they will have access to food as well as health care. So Rich, please tell us more about your efforts.
Yes, good morning. We too had a pandemic plan in place, thankfully, although I have to confess that it's a different pandemic plan today than it was when we dusted it off, but it did give us a foundation. Next, please. And so, you know, much like our peers, the basic pandemic plan provided some of the foundational aspects of cleaning and social distancing and those kind of features. But what we learned quickly is that employees did not understand how to use PPE. It is certainly not something that's traditionally used in transit. I fortunately had a background before transit in healthcare, so I kind of had an insight of what that's supposed to look like. So really what we did is create a building block effect of educational opportunities. And so I'll talk a little bit about the internal. So here is our workplace health guide. And in this health guide, it talks about everything from face masks to sanitation, to how to wash your clothes, to sanitize them at home. It was really all encompassing. And you can see here on the screen, the QR code. So how to wear gloves. And we put this in because I personally witnessed a driver pull down their mask with their gloves on, reach into their bag of chips and eat a chip, which is really not what PPE is supposed to be about. So this QR code, if you scan it, takes you to a video on how to properly put gloves on, what to do when you're using them, and how to take them off. And this whole guide is set up that way for employees, really to support fact over fiction. Next. So we created an external campaign, Let's Ride Together, for multi-purposes. I'm going to focus primarily on the educational aspect, really to promote good hygiene, well, for the traveling public. And so, you know, how to wash your hands, social distance, and we use this on our Facebook, our website, posters, in our buses, in our stations, wherever there's a passenger, there's information, and we change the message almost weekly in the beginning to really keep it fresh and people's attention. But we also think it gave a sense of comfort to ride because of all the actions we were taking. They saw us doing the fogging, the sanitation, very visual aspects to being safe, but then also encouraging riders to wear face masks. Next. So I want to highlight a couple kind of cool things that we've done through our partnerships. The picture on the left is where in the beginning we were taking homeless and sheltered individuals to be tested. There was a big concern if they think that someone's positive, what do we do with these individuals? And so this is Josh. He's a former Marine, and he says, I'm not worried about COVID, suit me up and send me in. And so he started with him, and we trained other drivers with full PPE, and we did that. It has now still doing some of that still today, but it has also moved into taking these individuals for vaccines. So very specialized program for homeless and sheltered individuals. On the right-hand side is a program where we partnered again through the healthcare system and the food bank. Well, we have individuals who are requesting to be quarantined and then find out they have no access to food. And so we are having our drivers drop off boxed meals and food for them so they can continue to quarantine. Next slide. So face masks. I know it's a big conversation in the industry, but I have to tell you that on April 13th, 2020, we put in a mandated face mask for all riders and all employees in all spaces related to public transportation. And the biggest pushback we got at that time, if you recall, the shortage of masks, that was the biggest concern. It wasn't wearing them, it was I can't get one. And so we have employees who are in quilters guilds. I didn't even know these things existed. And so they went to action, and within a couple days, hundreds of homemade face masks started to arrive here at Rapid Transit. And you can see a picture here where we put them in individual baggies and distributed them to riders personally, and also you know, through the mail for some of the rural areas. One thing that we did do early on is implement through our reasonable modification process. So if somebody came to us and said, I can't wear one for some reason or another, we did work with them and their healthcare provider to find a solution. And I have to say, we've had 100% success. Individuals, most of the time, they just didn't want to wear them. We even worked with employers to help riders to figure out the best method to keep their nose and mouth covered. Next. We did a lot of PR, I mentioned education, lots of press about wearing face masks, regularly repeated. The picture on the far right, you can see a woman who posted, been doing this all week. And so the riders not only like embraced it, but they embraced it to the point where they started posting on our social medias, look, I'm joining the cause here wearing a face mask, which I think helped overall. Next. So we recently, in February, announced free transportation on our shared ride program for all residents of all 11 counties we serve to have access to vaccines. We've done about 1,500 vaccines to date. So, and again, these are very rural areas in northern central Pennsylvania. And so, some of these folks have to travel 20 miles, 25 miles to get to a vaccine site. So it's been very successful in our opinion and well received. The employee experience has been somewhat mixed. We've had areas, because we cover 4 different healthcare systems. And so in some areas, they allowed us to schedule our employees. In other areas, we educated the employee to use the healthcare systems portal to make their own appointments. So it's been very mixed, but we did some surveying of our employees, and traditionally, if we can get 20% of our employees to get the flu shot, we think we're doing well. Over 60% of our employees are vaccinated, and that number continues to grow. So much more well received in this. WellSpan, which is York's major healthcare system, partnered with us, and they gave us 50 shots a week that we could distribute the appointment times to our most vulnerable riders. And so we went to our Paratransit database, and by age we have riders who are over 100 years of age riding with us regularly, which was exciting for me to learn. And so we were able to actually give them vaccine times for them to get their appointments, which we thought was a really great benefit to be a transit user. And then all of where there's fixed route, all of the major vaccine sites are on one of our routes. That was pre-planned. They came to us in advance, and it was really a good partnership through that effort. Next. Lastly, let's not forget our employees. It was really an eye-opening experience. I don't think I've ever done so many employee assistance program referrals than I have in the last year. This really took a toll on our employees, especially in the beginning, those first 4 or 5 months where it was just crisis every second. And so, again, trying to talk them down, lots of education. And we just started to do things that we would have never done before. We had T-shirt days, as you can see here, and all 600 employees over 11 counties wearing the same uniform, and they'd cross paths, and really talking about those aspects of making, getting through over the hurdles to really serve the essential workers and healthcare folks that we were serving, because we needed our drivers to be safe and show up so we could support the community. I think that's, hats off to those folks who really kept us moving. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Very informative and attacked on many different levels. So thank you for sharing those strategies with us. We appreciate it. And so we're going to move on to our next presenter, who is William Harrell, and he's the president and CEO from the Hampton Roads Transit. William has more than 35 years of public service and has led HRT since 2012, and previously was a city manager. His aggressive plan to restore and deliver more reliable services through a new bus network is being developed through the Transit Transformation Project. He has focused on cost-saving initiatives, resulting in a more efficient and sustainable transportation solution. William Harrell, take it away.
Thank you so very much, Terry, and I'm certainly pleased to be here. I'm just going to touch on a few points. I really want to focus on the fact that Hampton Roads Transit really is attempting to evolve as a progressive mobility agency that promotes prosperity in our region through collaboration and teamwork. And I think when we look at the relationship we have with the FTA, with FEMA, which we're going to talk about a bit, really speaks to that whole spirit of collaboration and teamwork. Just for those who may not know, Hampton Roads Transit is located within the Hampton Roads community in southeastern Virginia, and we represent 6 of Virginia's 10 largest cities, which includes Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Portsmouth, along with Hampton and Newport News on the peninsula. We have activated a multi-year strategy of response, recovery, and resilience to effectively meet the immediate challenges of the pandemic, and certainly the ongoing challenges. And we often say this is a marathon and not a sprint. We are committed to supporting equitable distribution and access to the vaccines, and that includes assisting vulnerable populations that face transportation barriers. And I really want to thank Andrea and the whole FEMA team for their support. Next. Just wanted to talk a bit about employee and community support efforts relative to our employees. Very early on, we worked to put together a video where union leadership and myself and others really talked to our employees about the importance of the vaccine. We had a lot of naysayers very early on, to include some of our senior team. And quite frankly, it took some time for people to get comfortable. But, you know, we recognize the fact that it's important for all of us to be protected and to review the data. We did lose 2 employees to COVID-19. And, you know, I think in a lot of ways, you know, it helped people recognize just how serious this whole pandemic has been. So we have now, I think we're approaching about 40% of the workforce that is fully vaccinated, and we're continuing to educate the full workforce to make sure that everyone recognizes that is a priority. As I mentioned, I certainly want to thank the FTA for their support through CARES and the American Rescue Plan Act funding that is coming. That funding has really enabled us to do the enhanced cleaning, purchasing the PPE, and all of those increased costs that have been associated with the pandemic. It's really allowed us to keep transit running at a vital time and to be in a position to get frontline workers to where they needed to be. One of the things we're proud of is that we enhanced the pay for operators and frontline workers. With them putting their lives on the line each and every day, we thought it was important to enhance their salaries during this time. And I think that's really been a morale booster. I also want to recognize, I think we have members of our finance team that are here. They work very closely with the FTA to draw down monies in an efficient way that's really helped us during this time. So thank you, Terry, and your entire team. Next. I also want to thank the TSA and FTA and our federal partners for the federal mask requirement, because very early on in the pandemic, we had riders that did not want to wear masks. So it certainly provided extra strength for our security folks and as well as our operators to say, this is a federal requirement, it's for your protection. So that's really been helpful to us, and thank you for the leadership in that regard. The other thing is that we required a medical exemption card very early on as well, because we had several riders that would say, well, I can't wear a mask, I have a condition. And what we were able to do was to utilize our medical consultant who qualifies our paratransit customers. We amended that contract to evaluate the medical condition of riders who said they couldn't wear a mask. And interestingly enough, only 1 out of all of our riders actually got an exemption. So many people were using that as an excuse not to wear a mask. So that was very helpful to us. We are committed, as I mentioned earlier, to make sure that everyone has access to getting vaccinations. And in working with FEMA and FTA, what we have done is we have begun distributing transit passes to our federal health and emergency response officials with our member cities. We wanted them to take the responsibility to identify those in need. And I've been really impressed with the way that they've gone about that, to include some of the outreach staff going door to door in vulnerable communities, making sure that they have access to the sites. And again, FEMA's just been a tremendous partner. In addition to that, because of our paratransit customers, many being vulnerable, we are providing free paratransit trips to vaccination sites. And that has been very successful. We started that April 12th, and we already last week, I think we had 72 trips in the first week. And I've been advised that over 25 trips have been scheduled for this week. So we've gotten the word out on that, and our paratransit customers are very grateful for that. Finally, we're looking at, we have an RFP out for on-demand service. FEMA had pointed out that there are specific zones where people are extremely vulnerable, and what we want to do is provide a curb-to-curb on-demand trips to vaccination sites. And we intend to do that over a 45-day period. And with the support of the CARES funding, we think we can pull that off. Our member cities are really excited about it. So in conclusion, I just want to say success really requires collaboration and teamwork. And we certainly have had great partners to really make this happen. So thank you, Terry, for an opportunity to share this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. You're very welcome. Thank you, William. All right, so we're going to move from Delaware over to Delaware from Virginia. So I am pleased to introduce the Chief Executive Officer, John Sisson. John has 25 years of experience in transportation, and he has overseen restoration and renovation projects and led the efforts to implement a new bus lane on I-95, which also served to expand Wi-Fi on the buses and in the transit centers. John has overseen the ongoing implementation of DTC's transit redesign plan and played a key role in the corporation's efforts to rethink the way transit is delivered in Delaware. John, please share with us what's happening in your agency. John, up to you now.
Thanks, Terry, and thank you everyone for joining this great peer exchange. So a little bit about DART in Delaware. We're a statewide transit provider with fixed route. Uniquely, we provide statewide door-to-door paratransit, and then with our partner with SEPTA, we bring regional rail into the state as well in Newcastle County. And next slide. Real quick, we're a little over 1,000 employees doing over 7 million trips a year, almost operating every day of the year, a couple holidays in there. Next slide. So when the pandemic started, I think we all remember we're going to flatten the curve for a couple of weeks, and it really has changed stuff. So back in March 2020, we significantly reduced services. Actually went out to say essential trips only. That was coming from the state level of really trying to get people to stay at home and try to, get this pandemic under control early. We limited bus capacity to 40% and began thoroughly cleaning and sanitizing each night using vinyl oxide spray in the bus every night, wiping down during the day, doing all sorts of different things to make sure our services were safe. In April of 2020, we began free fares and rear door boarding. That was really a request that came from our frontline and union leadership that were really concerned about the employees who, as this news is coming out, were asked to still come into work and provide these essential trips. People who were taking transit back then and still taking transit now are really, really in need of our services. These are the people who critically rely on public transit, and this is their only way of mobility. So our drivers coming in felt a little bit at risk, and we were trying to do everything we could to make sure that they were safe. Next slide, please. So through May and June, we opened our new transit center in Wilmington, and then we began to increase service levels. In June, we were back to full service, but we still reduced the capacity on our buses at 60% where it remains today. We tag out providing discounts for mobile fare payments to try to get less cash, less interaction at the fare box. We did some things where we asked customers to take selfies and post it on our website, and we're giving out 7-day passes for contest winners. Kind of continue to promote that. We have announcements on the buses continually going, asking, reminding customers that masks are requirement. Our destination signs now say mask required. Have been that way for quite a while now. Next slide, please. Ongoing, we're still temperature screening all our employees as they're reporting to work and providing them all the PPE they needed. I think as a few of it mentioned early on, that was a challenge, but it's something we got going on now. At the beginning, we still offer this. We're offering biweekly at-home COVID testing for all our frontline employees. All our employees have been offered vaccinations at this point. We started with paratransit drivers who, by the nature of their business, because of their interaction with the customers and the vulnerability of the customers they deal with, we felt like we're the most critical to get the vaccinations. So at this point, I think I got all our employees have been able to get up to their second dose at this point. We're still fighting some of that resistance through the workforce and continue to educate them on the need to get those vaccinations. We have hand sanitizer stations on every buses. We're continuing to add driver barriers. Not all our buses have them now, but we're continuing to do that. And one of the things I think really cool that we're doing is midday cleanings at our transit hubs. So as a customer, if a bus is laying over a transit hub, we have staff out there wiping down high contact surfaces. It continues to show that to our customers that yes, we take their safety seriously, we take our employees' safety seriously, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that they have a safe ride. Next slide, please. Again, ridership, I think everyone has seen a hit on ridership. We are down right now 45% on fixed route and 55% on paratransit. So one of the things we've been able to do is rearrange some resources. We've had paratransit drivers shift over to fixed route to help. Even though fixed route ridership is down, we still have the same demand for operators. And then as you manage through employees, getting COVID, or even the reaction to the vaccination doses, like, we have employees who might need a day or two off after getting that vaccination. So we've been helping to manage resources there. Next slide. So one of the coolest things we've done is we partner with our Delaware Health and Social Services to bring vaccines to our most vulnerable citizens. So as a statewide paratrans provider, we really, we're hitting all the most rural and hard to reach areas. So we started in Sussex County, which is our most rural county, and we called our 650 registered paratransit customers in that county and asked them if they needed to get a vaccine. We got 78 people take us up on that. We're in the process of doing second doses now. But some of the stories that came out of that are really heart-wrenching. Some of these our customers have not left their house in over a year. They were just, for whatever reason, their condition, they're at risk. They had not left their house in so long. So being able to get them the vaccine and then being able to get them to the point where they can get back and interact with society was really a great move. We were scheduled to start on our other two counties with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but that's been on pause. So we're waiting to get some guidance on whether they're going to switch the type of vaccine and have to do 2 doses, or wait for Johnson & Johnson to be used again. We've done a lot of other things, communication with our employees through town halls and emails. I've never done so much Zoom communication in my life, and making sure, just getting that out there, asking their questions, making sure they're being answered. Can we go to the next slide, please? And then, working with, our employees, like, as I said, we have some gaps in service with paratransit being down. We have a reservationist who's been put on loan to public health to help with all these vaccination events, put equipment together, put supplies together. So that employee's been working there for the last 6 months. We have, obviously, probably like others, employees who are part of the National Guard. They're out on duty, helping out with FEMA events, helping out doing other things. We've been staffing vaccination events. I still remember early on, the early vaccinations, myself and the Secretary of Transportation in the freezing cold, pre-screening customers with vaccination, going through the screens like laptops freezing up, just trying to get those things through. The picture here on the right is actually one of our garages, which is located next to a motor vehicle site that was being used for vaccinations. They started getting overflow, so we opened up our garage bay and had cars actually going through a maintenance garage with customers getting vaccinated. And then we annually have been doing a Stuff the Bus event since 1998. Last spring, we added a spring event. The event's usually in the fall around Thanksgiving. We added a spring event knowing the need for food out there with people and unemployed and all the other different things. We're doing another one next week for spring. And so not only are we collecting food through this event that goes to the Food Bank of Delaware, we've been helping with food bank distribution events. So all around, not just doing our normal public transit, but doing other events, just understanding what the state and the nation is going through, being part of the community. We have a slogan, we're the heart of DART. Our employees are the heart of DART, and we allow them to get out there and share with the community all these great events. I think that was the last slide.
Thank you, John. Wow. Awesome. Awesome efforts. All right. So, and our final speaker is Leslie Richards from the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority. Leslie has been leading SEPTA, the 6th largest public transportation system, since 2020. Before joining SEPTA, she was the first woman secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. While at PennDOT, Leslie improved efficiencies to meet funding challenges, broadened the planning and project development processes to consider input from all stakeholders through the collaborative PennDOT Connects initiative. She has been recognized by for her leadership in the industry and her commitment to public service. So, Leslie, let's hear about your efforts.
Sure. Thanks, Terry. And again, just like my other peers here, it's great to be part of this conversation. Before I go in to the slides, I just want to do a quick recap. We also, just like our other peers, have done a recovery plan, a microsite on our website to keep information flowing. We've done town halls, an employer toolkit, which has been really helpful for us to work with our employees. And in addition to the employers we support on how to help best support their return to office efforts. It's a big part of what we're doing right now. And then on the mask compliance effort, again, we require masks. And again, we are very helpful and we are very appreciative of the national guidance that has come out, which has helped us in that area. We do a lot of positive reinforcement around the compliance. We've distributed over 400,000 masks from FTA. We're very grateful for those masks, and we continue to do that, as well as participate in the mask force efforts with New Jersey Transit, with MTA, with Amtrak. And we have a mask force Philly effort where we continue to give out free masks and encourage the mask requirement. Also, just like what John just said, we have selfies, we have contests. You take a picture with your masks, you send it, it goes on our social media. It's a fun way to positively reinforce the masks, and there's little prizes that are associated with it as well. What I'd like to use my time with you here today, I knew we would be talking about, getting COVID information out and also getting mask compliance out, is I'd like to concentrate on our vaccination efforts here. A little bit different than when Rich described in getting that challenge of the rural, his rural customers. Here in the greater Philadelphia area, it has been a real challenge to get the vaccines into underserved areas, densely populated, underserved areas. And so what we wanted to show first is how we're partnering with others. And in the top right-hand corner here is a partnership we're very proud of with the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, led by Dr. Stanford, who's become quite the national speaker on how to get vaccines into disadvantaged neighborhoods. We were the first partnership with them on the business level, and we're very, very proud of that. She allowed us to get our transit workers tested as often as they needed, as well as when we put together our temperature screening and our other programs to make sure our employees were safe, and also to make sure, that our customers feel safe. We're very grateful to FEMA and Andrea and your team. They've been fantastic. These other, the picture in the upper left-hand corner there, and also in the lower left-hand corner, shows our partnership. The upper left-hand corner picture is taken at the FEMA site, which is operating right now with walk-ins as well as appointments. And this is our CCT table, where we offer the paratransit, free paratransit services back and forth. And so we are very much engaged as far as the two large FEMA sites here. One is at Esperanza and one is at the convention center. And we've been preparing information and getting it out to everybody, that you can take regional rail, that you can take our subways, which bus routes go to these centers. It's very important with a system where, over 1 million people live within a half mile of a SEPTA station. And both of these locations, which we were very active in the participation of the choosing of the locations, we made sure that they were areas that were well serviced by our existing system, as well as adding to it. And the Esperanza site, which is in a Hispanic neighborhood that does not have easy access to the medical community, we're very happy to be there as well. You can see the National Guard and other veterans and national help that we've received, and we bus them to and from these sites. Also show them a good time and have them enjoy their stay here. We're very grateful that they're here helping us in the greater Philadelphia area get vaccines into people's arms. Here also, I just want to call out all of the other partnerships that we've had, working closely with the city of Philadelphia. I already mentioned the Black Doctors. Obviously, FEMA has been a big part, but we've also had major healthcare providers step up for us. Mainline Health, Einstein, Jefferson. When it was very hard for us to get vaccines, they reserved large amounts for our transit workers, knowing that their employees needed us for them to return to the office, but also just to function and provide, essential care to their patients. And we're very, very, again, grateful for those partnerships, which have allowed us to get vaccines to our employees. Next slide, and this will be the last slide before we can go to Q&A. I just wanted to let you know, first of all, as William mentioned, I wanted to highlight our logo, which has changed during the pandemic to include a black ribbon. And this is on all of our letterhead and our communications right now. It was voted on by our employees. We've lost 10 employees to COVID. And we, without being able to get together and mourn collectively in a group, we thought this was a good way for our employees to show that we care. Of course, we'll plan something when we can all safely congregate. So that is our memorial logo. And these are some of the efforts that we've put in place to encourage our employees. Every employee has been offered a vaccine. We are just north of 50%. We had to work very hard for that number. We have 9,500 employees. And these are just some of the initiatives to encourage. So this is a heart wall that's outside our control center. We ask everyone who gets a vaccine to write why, and it's for our family, for our children, for our parents, for our workers, for our customers. It's really heartwarming to see the reasons. And then everyone gets a pin, which is on the right, and we all wear those proudly as well. We have testimonial videos of famous athletes helping people encourage it, as well as a $100 stipend to any employee who gets full vaccines. And so that we see as a major challenge, getting those numbers up. We're aiming for over 70%, which is the recommended percentage right now, and looking, to again help all of us recover and get people to a safe vaccination and percentage, and so that we can all gather together safely and recover together.
Right. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate all the aspects you covered with us this morning. So I'm going to pause for just a moment because for a time of reflection, and what I'm listening to all the speakers, and my takeaways are as follows. So, I was jotting down notes. I think the first one that seems to really resonate with me is compassion. The compassion that we're having for our workforce, for each other, and staying with the C's, right? Compassion. There's communication. I'm just listening to all of you, just the incredible communication and the dialogue that you've had, as well as collaboration, the next C, right? Collaboration, and the partnerships that you've built. It's been incredible. There is not a rule book, right, that tells us how to deal with this pandemic, but all of you collectively in partnership and collaboration, you're working towards extremely positive efforts in this venue. So I applaud all of you, and thank you so much for sharing the information that you've shared. So let's go ahead and take a question that we received in advance. And the question, any of the panelists, if you want to go on camera, that would be great. We can see all of you. That would be wonderful. And you know what? I'm going to pause because if we can get everybody on camera, we'd like to do a quick photo of you. So kind of as a hallmark moment of being together during this this wonderful event and information exchange. So, all right, everybody that wants to be in the picture, go ahead and smile.
Okay, I'm gonna say this is Tony Cho. I'm gonna say I can give everyone a couple of seconds, and then I'm gonna count down to 3. Okay.
All right.
Everyone ready? We're gonna say 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay, let me save that one. And let me do one quick more.
All right, one more.
And then actually after, so one more, 1, 2, 3, cheese. And then if we can just have, if I can just ask for just the panelists, for the speakers to have their cameras on.
All right, I'm going dark then.
Yeah. So I think we had 7 speakers, right? So we're 7 speakers. If you keep your cameras on, we're all set to go. Okay, everyone ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you, Tony. All right, so let's go ahead and ask the question that we received in advance, and which was, have you reduced surface cleaning in transit vehicles as it becomes clearer that this is an insignificant infection vector, and shifted emphasis towards the proactive efforts of air recirculation? So who would like to take that on?
Terry, this is William Harrell at HRT. I'll just jump in. We're still continuing to do the surface cleaning, but what we have done is install ionizers on both our bus and rail fleets, and they are certainly installed within the ducts and are active when the HVAC system is running. So we've supplemented the cleaning with the filters, the air purifiers.
Great. Okay. Thank you, William. Anyone else?
I'm happy to respond for SEPTA. So at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were running a reduced service, significantly reduced service, we worked with our unions to deploy operators and others who are not out on their full shifts to help us with cleaning. And we had also stopped service at certain times so we could do full cleaning of the vehicles. So that has stopped as far as stopping service specifically for full wipe downs of those vehicles. But all of the other wipe downs that we're doing, we're still doing them. So we're currently wiping down vehicles, high touch areas at least twice a day. We're performing house cleans. We feel it's really important that our customers see that. And a lot of it is letting them know that we're on top of it, that we're cleaning it. And we really do want our system to be as clean as possible. So we learned a lot of good things while we were working on these high touch and surface areas. And just like what William said, we've definitely upped our game on air filtration. You know, SEPTA vehicles, the air is fully exchanged every 2 to 3 minutes. We're getting that information out there. We upgraded our vehicle filtration to MERV 13 certifications, and we've established partnerships, particularly one with Drexel University, where we have an FTA grant, which again, we're very appreciative of, to work on different ways of cleaning, disinfecting, and upgrading our air quality. So we continue to work on all of those things, and do feel that the optics and also how people feel when they enter our system, we want them to feel good. And cleanliness is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Terry, this is Paul at Metro, Washington Metro. Very similar to what Leslie's doing, pretty much the same thing. But what's important, we've done surveys of our customers in different focus groups, and they've told us they want to see us cleaning. You know, it gives them a comfort level. I also think it does help even with our employees. You know, it's a sort of a subtle way of reminding them and reinforcing to them that we continue to be on top of this. So we will continue that into the future as we see it right now.
Okay, great. All right. So continued emphasis, it sounds like, which is, you made a really good point. And, you know, that's what our riders want to see, right? The public wants to have that level of reassurance that it's okay to ride and then be safe on that ride. Okay, if there are not any additional responses to that question, Gail, I'm going to ask you to see if there are any questions in the chat box that you might want to raise to the panelists.
Right, we'll give our attendees another few seconds. I posted a reminder to add questions to the chat, and at this time we don't have any. Okay. I don't know if you want to wait a second or move and see if people want to ask their questions live in an open forum.
What we'll do
we don't have any at this time.
No, which is fine. And what we'll do is we'll see if anyone would like to raise their hand through the chat, and Angie will acknowledge you. And the raise hand is where the little reaction is at the top there for you to raise your hand, pop it up, hit it again to pop it back down, and then ask your question. I mean, this is great. You guys are very, very informative in all your different strategies and your approaches. It's not often that we get such a good group of people here that can speak frankly and candidly and share some lessons learned. Here's a great opportunity to do some information sharing and really learn some best practices. So I encourage you not to be shy. And we saw the participant list, and there are a lot of people on this call, as well as I know some of the personalities, and typically are not shy personalities, but that's a good thing. So, any hands up, Angie?
Not at this time. We have some shy people.
We do. We couldn't have nailed it like that well, right? Okay.
Hold on. I've got a hand. Somebody raise their hand. I got to find him. There's a lot of you in here. I'm surprised you guys aren't all. Oh, here we go. Libby. I'm going to allow you to unmute. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Did we get Libby unmuted?
I am checking, Terry, this is Gail. I'm scrolling through. We do have a lot of people in here, so I'm scrolling through to see if I can find. All right, so I found Libby. Libby, you should be able to unmute yourself because of where you are. You've been elevated to the stage.
Hello?
All right, there you are.
Center there. You're on stage.
This is Libby. I thought I'd help you break the ice. Maybe other people will follow suit. I just wanted to say hello.
Awesome, Libby. I love it. Thank you so much.
And I enjoyed the presentation very much.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you have a question for the panelists?
No, I thought it was quite informative. Everything was nicely presented. And I just was hoping to break the ice for you.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. So now that we've got the ice broken and there's a hole in the ice, is there anyone else that would like to ask a question? And while we're waiting, you know what I'd like to hear a little bit about while, folks are just thinking about wanting to raise their hand. One of the aspects that I was particularly curious about is, the percentage of your workforce and how some of you mentioned your percentages, but how many folks have, in your workforce have you been fortunate enough to get vaccinated? I think I heard 30% in the one group. So what would be your projections on your estimates of your workforce being vaccinated at this point?
So we're at probably about 35% for our frontline, our drivers and mechanics. And actually just took Leslie's idea of offering a stipend and trying to see if I can get that through. We got to do something. I know there's a lot of nervousness about it, but we can't afford, as we start reducing the restrictions and start putting more people on the buses, we can't afford to not have the workforce here. So I think it's a real challenge for all of us to get through to those employees.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thanks, John. Anyone else?
This is William Harrell. I agree with John. I mean, we really struggled. Many of our bus drivers are African American, and obviously there are some cultural concerns related to vaccines. So, certainly as an African American leader, I certainly made it very clear to everyone that I was getting the vaccine, and we got our union involved. But at this point, we are approaching 40%, which is not where we want to be, but we are making progress. And as I mentioned earlier, and I'm glad Leslie mentioned it too, we did lose 2 of our operators. And, I think the significance of that, while you hear it, you see it, but, when it touches you directly, it certainly impacts you in a different way. So we've highlighted those employees in our newsletters and internal communication. So I think that's going to help us get a bit further, but it's an ongoing challenge. And I was glad to see, except of the Black doctors being involved. I think it's important that people see people in their communities. One of our cities, Chesapeake, where I reside, many of the Black churches have come together, their pastors, to encourage the community to take this very seriously and to get vaccinated. So it's an ongoing process, and certainly, hopefully, we'll be able to report higher numbers in the future.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, William.
We do have one question.
Okay.
And this is primarily for transit agencies, but I believe our FEMA participant and TSA, well, TSA really will probably be able to weigh in. And the question is from Michael Radbill, and he asks, how do you manage situations when customers refuse to wear a mask on a bus or train? How do you handle a situation where a customer refuses to wear a mask on a bus or train?
I think I'll try this in recognizing that York doesn't necessarily look like Philadelphia. So, it is a different world, but we don't have trains, which is different. But we just simply said from the beginning that the bus doesn't move until everyone's face is covered. There's no fighting with anyone. If you have to just step off the vehicle and say, let me know when you're ready to go, we'll go. Peer pressure has been marvelous, and the folks on the bus tend to police themselves. I can count on one hand since last April where we had to intervene. And again, it's a different world. We're a little smaller, more rural, thankfully. And so, that's worked well for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich.
This is, I beg your pardon, this is Mary Leftridge Bird with TSA. I would like to weigh in on it. It's a very important question, and obviously not all individuals have wanted to comply. In fact, there have been some employees who question the need or the requirement, and because Surface does not have a history of security directives, certainly in contrast to aviation, it became clear to me early on that we would need to engage, as I mentioned, through a three-point strategy operationally, meaning that our inspectors have engaged with the operators of the buses and other transit. Corporately, inspectors, supervisors have gone to head offices, agency offices, to talk with corporate leaders about how we could collaborate in terms of ensuring compliance. Being of one voice is very important. The mutuality part of this is absolutely critical. And that is the third part, the collaborative strategy. We certainly want no employee, anyone's employee, to place him or herself in harm's way. And has just been, as has just been mentioned, the transit doesn't move if it needs to move, and the person becomes combative. Typically, security has been prearranged, and or a law enforcement department will respond. And that comes out of the upfront collaboration that we did in planning, so that we are not the only entity or authority involved, but that we stand shoulder to shoulder and ultimately always talk about what the intended goal is. And the intended goal is to keep all of us safe. Hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. Very well stated, Mary. Thank you. All right. Anyone else would like to chime in on that response?
We're the same as Rich. We will stop service and try to get the customer to wear the mask. I think peer pressure works. Ultimately, our operators will call the control center and they'll call law enforcement, and who have been successfully to peacefully get people off the vehicle if they won't do it. But I will say it hasn't been a huge problem. It's probably no different than some of the other nuisance issues we might have with a customer who might be intoxicated or something like that. So it really hasn't been a big problem.
Yeah, I'll chime in.
Thank you, John.
A larger agency here at SEPTA. Look, we try to be very careful. We don't want to put our employees or our customers in a confrontational situation. If someone refuses to wear a mask, we ask them, just like John just said, to get off the bus if they will do so willingly. There's a difference between someone who won't wear a mask and sits calmly on one of our vehicles and someone who makes a big deal and perhaps exhibits some aggressive behavior. Then law enforcement is called. And so that's how we've been dealing with it. But I will say we've had very high mask compliance rates, well over 90%. I would say well over, 97% as far as wearing masks. I would say 90% when we look at who's wearing them correctly. Sometimes, the nose is showing. Sometimes it's, not over the mouth properly, but has not been a big issue for us. And we're really pleased with all the positive reinforcement. But again, we do everything with trying to keep our employees, our customers, and everybody out of a confrontational situation, which could turn into a dangerous situation.
Exactly.
Terry, this is Paul at Washington.
Yes,
We're
Paul.
very similar to what Leslie just described, with a larger system and how we're dealing with it. But one thing that we have done is we have equipped all of our buses with free masks for the patrons. So we literally our operations staff created a little plastic holder very quickly and did that and then filled them in. So again, it's another way of showing, look, we're all in this together. And, you know, here, if you forgot it or whatever, here's one for you. And again, just trying to bring the temperature down wherever we can. But pretty much we're all in the same place that, you know, if it elevates, unfortunately, but, you know, that has been just hasn't been a big issue for us.
That's great. It's great to hear everyone's
Terry,
position.
I beg your pardon. Terry, this is Mary. I just want to certainly add or acknowledge that we have the ability, obviously, to impose citations and enforcement. And that's not our interest. We will do what is necessary, but I think to gain the confidence of the person during an exchange, and it was as just described, if it escalates, it takes it to another level. Mm-hmm. But I think, again, preparing for this up front, and then I'm recalling one instance where there was quite a significant pushback by the entity itself. And we had to figure that out pretty quickly. But what that turned into was another opportunity. And our inspectors, at the end of the day, began to be invited to leadership team meetings, regular meetings, so that we could continue to brief. So we see this in terms of implementation. While it has been probably 2.5 months, I should know the number of days and I don't, but this is a process, not an event. And so tempering expectations and being transparent and available and accessible has worked very, very well for us and for our partners, which is most important. Thank you again.
That makes sense. So would it be good to characterize it? Because I think I've heard it before, where rather than going down the enforcement lane, actually going into the encouragement and implementation zone, if you will. And that seems to be the preferred strategy.
Oh, absolutely. Mutuality is everything. And you know, you use what you need to use, but enforcement and imposing citation is not where we start. We start on common ground. And that's the way I have cast a number of the meetings that I've attended, to include speaking in one state, speaking directly with a union representative, because I understood, having worked in government a number of years, to include in corrections for 30 years, I understand and appreciate and respect the relationship between a labor leader and his or her constituency, and knew that his voice was a very important voice in the process as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary, for sharing that. Appreciate it. All right.
We have one other question if there are no other panelists who want to respond to that previous question.
Okay.
And I believe this will be the last one that we'll have time for, but we would like for our panelists as well as the attendees to know, if you have a question that comes up and we're not able to take it and you put it in the chat in the last few minutes, we'll get back to you afterwards. Our final question is, what was the lowest level of ridership throughout 2020 and 2021? This will be for our transit agencies. And this is coming from Judy Davis. And the second part of that, and I think this is a part that a lot of people, not just Judy, are wondering about. Any time frame or expectations you might have on when ridership levels will return in transit?
Wow. Okay. Who's got the crystal ball?
This is William. I'm not sure I have the crystal ball, but certainly during the height of the pandemic and the shutdowns, our ridership was down 65%. It was incredible during that period of time. We instituted what we call the Essential Service Plan, which was essentially, because ridership was so low, providing service to major employers who were open. We continued that probably from mid-March to the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, and added service back. Our biggest, I would say at this point, our ridership is down about 40%. So it is coming back as the marketplace is improving. Our current challenge is the fact that we have operators who have gone and gotten vaccines and who may have been out due to side effects, as well as people having family issues and having to stay home. So we've just recently scaled back our service delivery just a bit to make sure that we aren't missing as many trips. Generally, we stay in the 3% range, but we've seen missed trips go up as high as 12%. So we figured let's scale back based on the level of workforce that we can count on each and every day. So it's an ongoing effort, but our projections are hopeful that in the next year and a half or so that hopefully we'll get back to 2019 ridership numbers.
Okay. Thank you, William. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
I'll jump in real quick. We were down about 70% on fixed route at the worst part, probably last April. Commuter rail, which we partner with SEPTA to bring in, it's been hurt probably the most. It's going to continue to be challenged. I don't know, like looking to the future, I think we're all kind of waiting to see what the workforce does. I mean, businesses have learned that their employees can work from home, and they're going to have, it's going to be a changed market. And so I know we're looking ahead to take a look at the system and see what we should be doing differently. We've identified who really needs our service the most. They're the ones who are riding now, and see what we can do to provide better service for them and understand it's going to be a changed market. So I think it's going to be, we're all optimistic to get back in a couple of years to where we were. I think the commuter market, the 9-to-5 job is going to be totally different for all of us. And the demand for our services is going to be different. So we shall see.
All right. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I'll just add, particularly on the regional rail that we work with John on, that saw a huge decrease, even 98% at one point. These are our choice riders. They have other options. They can work from home in a much higher percentage than our other riders on our transit, on our subways, our trolleys, our buses. But even there, we were down 75% at times. We're now running a little over, I would say we're still down around 60%, 65% on our regional rail. We're still down a little more than that as people start to figure out how they return to office and maybe do so 1 day a week, 2 days a week. So we're figuring that out. As far as the crystal ball, wish we had it, wish we knew what it would look like. I can tell you, while we're very grateful for all the federal funding, there's no scenario when we've run several where the federal funding lasts longer than it takes for our ridership to come back. So, saying that a different way, our federal funding will definitely run out before any type of sustained ridership is anticipated. And so, just like everyone else, we're doing the best that we can to make that money last as long as it can, and we're very grateful for it. But it's hard to know, especially right before this call. I got off a call with the major employers here in the greater Philadelphia area, and they are working on return to office. Most of them are not considering it prior to September. September seems to be the date they're looking at, and the majority of them are looking at 1 or 2 day a week returns to a percentage of their work from home employees right now, and not even full. So it's going to be slow, we anticipate here as ridership returns.
It sounds like it, definitely. All right. Anyone else? If not, we'll close it down.
If I could, Terry, just one comment on that.
Yes.
It's we focus a lot, obviously, on the commute. The commute part of the model, but I think we have to start as transit agencies starting to think differently about it, right? Because people are going to start to do things differently. So it may be that it doesn't come back at the commute level, whether it's 2, 3, 4 days a week, whatever people do in terms of their coming into the office. But I think there's tremendous opportunities for transit to serve much broader needs, and I think people will start to travel differently. So if we only provide a high level of service during peak period and then a lower level during non-peak, but yet that's when people may start to be moving more, we have to rethink, how we provide service. So that is one big, challenge I think that we all face. It particularly faces in dense urban areas like DC or Philadelphia, where historically it's been around the peak service. So I think we really need to think differently about this going forward. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to serve the community in a different way. So I would just add that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Yes, thanks for sharing that, Paul. All right, so great dialogue. If there are additional questions, please put them in the chat. We will get responses back to you if we have to reach out to our panelists, and I will ensure that that question and response is sent back to everyone in the recorded link. Angie, if you can go to the next slide, the closed slide, please, and we'll go ahead and conclude this. I just want to remind everyone that obviously we've talked a lot about the federal funding, and there's the CARES, CRISA, American Rescue, that those emergency funds are available obviously to support services to vaccination sites, incidental use for your facilities. I would encourage that you would work with your grant rep within the region to kind of sort all that out. Also, I'd like to remind everyone, and it sounds like a lot of agencies already have this in play, but there is a toolkit that where you don't have to recreate the wheel. USDOT has provided that toolkit for the mask up requirement, and basically has social media messages, posters, Q&As, and so that is available. And I just want to also say to all of you that have participated in this panel, for our federal partners, our transit agencies, you guys have been phenomenal. You guys have been the pillars of what we need to accomplish with our communities. As a former CEO, I can feel it. I know what you guys go through, and I applaud your efforts. I love the collaboration that we have had with, the USDOT, the regional offices, with all our partnerships, whether it's with our transit agencies or on a federal level. So I just want to say thank you for your diligence, your passion, your commitment to it, and particularly your frontline folks, right? Because they're out there living it. And a lot of individuals have experienced it very personally. So we applaud their efforts collectively. I also want to say a special thank you to my regional team for just the production of doing this. You guys were phenomenal. Thank you so much. I know this is probably out of our lane a little bit, but it's always good to grow, right? And have that growth development and move into another lane that may not be comfortable for us. But you guys did phenomenally well. I appreciate that. And with that said, this concludes our session. I hope you found it very informative. Please be safe, and thank you for joining us, and have a great day.